Hello and welcome to another episode in On My Arty Bookshelf. Each week, more or less this year, I am making a piece of mixed media art inspired by one or more of the things that I have on my Arty Bookshelf. It's so lovely to see you here today. I hope you're doing really well and that you're going to do something nice for yourself today. What am I doing for myself today? Today I am spending some time doing some slow stitching, which is always a good thing. Today I'd like to talk to you about another type of textile art, and it's called Saori weaving. It's a particular style of weaving that emphasizes making something that's completely original and one of a kind and could never be replicated or repeated. And this would be an example of a Saori woven piece. I wove this a few years ago. Let me tell you about Saori. In the last video, I mentioned a company that offers weaving trips all over the world, and I mentioned that they offered a trip to Salt Spring Island, which is a place that's really close to where I live. And I wanted to find out more about the type of weaving that their trip was all about. The trip that they offered at the time that I signed up was to do something called Saori weaving, S-A-O-R-I. Now, Saori is not an ancient style of weaving. It's fairly recent, and this is one of the books that I have acquired. It's in Japanese, but it's got some really fabulous photos of really fun and brightly colored garments, and this is why I bought this book. So it turned out that Terry Bibby of Saori Salt Spring was actually offering a weaving workshop in Vancouver. So I signed up for it and I spent the weekend weaving, and it woke something up. At the time, I had not woven for about 16 years. I know that because I stopped weaving when I was pregnant with my first daughter, and she was 16 at the time. And I remember during the workshop thinking, this is how I always used to weave. And somehow I thought, one day I'm going to grow up and become a proper adult and understand all that precision in detail and regularly repeating patterns. I'm still no good at that. I'm 59 years old and I'm still not very good at that. I can do it if I try really hard, but it's not fun for me. I like the spontaneous creation and variation that comes from being imperfect and irregular and spontaneous. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you can probably see that this is something that would really appeal to me. Saori's, it has these 4 slogans. Now let's look at them. The first is consider the difference between something made by a machine and something made by a human. Now what does that mean to you? And the second is be bold and adventurous. Again, what does that mean to you? And the third, look out through eyes that shine. And the last one, inspire each other and everyone in the group. And I hope that these videos that I make do that. These slogans that they have really speak to me, and I was absolutely hooked. So what did I do? I went to Estonia and did a Saori weaving workshop there. I wove enough fabric to make this vest. And then I went to a Saori workshop in Santa Cruz in California. I did the weaving before I went to the studio, and while I was there, I made a jacket. This jacket, in fact. That led to my decision to change my work to working as an artist. The second book that I chose for this week is a book about Wabi Sabi. Now, Wabi Sabi is another Japanese philosophy, and it's about finding inspiration and beauty in the ordinary. Those are my inspirations for today's piece. Now, I've got these 2 pieces of paper, and they're not particularly beautiful or interesting. And I'm going to see if I can weave them together and see what happens, see what emerges. Instead of cutting them, I'm going to tear the papers. I feel like that will be more spontaneous and more in keeping with the Wabi Sabi and Saori kind of philosophy of just letting things emerge and not trying to control things too much. So For many years, I'd been working in social services and talking about individuality and how we can celebrate our differences rather than trying to be like everyone else and fit into the same mold. And I realized that I could do that more readily and reach more people through art rather than through the eating disorder and parent education work that I had been doing. So these are the motivations for what I'm going to create today. So, yeah, we know how to tear paper. Now, I've done a fair amount of weaving with strips of paper and leather and different materials, plant materials. So I know that things can get out of control really easily. So I'm not splitting these all into individual strips. I'm keeping a little bit of control over things, which maybe not in the whole Saori thing, but I feel like this will make my life a little bit easier. Now, the second piece of paper here, I'm tearing it in the opposite direction because I'll be weaving the other pieces across. I need one set of strips going in the long direction and the other set of strips going in the short direction. So the long strips I have folded back every other strip, and now the short strips I'm folding back all of the strips except the very bottom one. And I'll show you why I'm doing that in just a minute. It'll all start to make sense. So I'm laying the crosswise strips on top of my folded lengthwise strips, and then I'm flipping up every other one, the ones that I'd folded down. And now for the second row, I'm again folding down every other spoke there, but I'm folding down the opposite ones. Now I'm folding those green strips over top of the yellow strips. So if you don't see a yellow strip there, then I don't fold that one over. And I do this in every row. I'm folding over one set of green strips, and then I'm folding over the opposite strips. So this creates that over under pattern that we see in weaving. And to me, this is the easiest way to do it. It is a bit fiddly in my experience. Everything about weaving is fiddly, but if you just take your time and don't try to rush and don't try to make things perfect, it all seems to work out. And I keep going until I get to the top. Once I finish weaving, I'm going to glue down the edges. I don't have to glue down the whole thing. If I secure the edges, everything in the middle will be secured as well. And I'm just tearing off the bits that I don't need. And then once the edges are glued down, everything's going to stay in place. Nothing's going to move around, and I can fiddle around with it as much as I want. I'm going to glue this paper into my book, but when I glued it down, I put the glue on that nice regular side of the page where I had a nice grid, where this other side of the page is a little bit more random. And that was not what my intention was, but I forgot about that when I was putting the glue on. So instead of thinking of that as a mistake and trying to figure out how I could fix it, I just went, oh well, I guess this is going to be the front, and I went with it. And is it perfect? No. Does it matter? Absolutely not at all. I'm not passing judgment. It is what it is, and sometimes our subconscious works in ways that we can't predict. And it can be really hard to let that be, but I think that is part of intuition, is allowing that to be being okay with it instead of getting all anxious and thinking, oh, I don't like this isn't what I meant to do, I need to change this, how can I change it, or throwing it out in the garbage. If I just say, oh well, this is how it is, it's fine, then it changes the way that I feel about everything. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.